After working extensively with Jenkins for various CI/CD tasks, I have come to appreciate the essential role automation plays in maintaining speed and stability throughout the entire software delivery process. Jenkins, though a veteran tool, still stands strong with its flexibility and power. With the configuration as code plugin, managing chunking become even more efficient, allowing you to define your entire configuration in YAML, making setup easy to replicate, track, and evolve. Hello, this is Naren, your host. In this video, we are going to talk about Jenkins configuration as code. You may wonder what is the Jenkins configuration as a code. It's a process of deploying Jenkins with predefined set of configuration through code. So this is very important feature, or I would say it's a cool feature of the Jenkins which allow you to set up your Jenkins as a code. So let's get started with this cool feature together with me. And if you not yet subscribe my channel, I suggest subscribe my channel, hit the like button and share with your fellow DevOps engineers. This gonna be a great video those who are learning DevOps skill in advance, DevOps advanced skill. So let's get started without a delay. I'm going to share my screen. I have created a Hyper-V VM. It's a Ubuntu 2020. It's Ubuntu 2020.04 OS. So let's delete this folder. I was working on something, so I create this folder. So let's remove this folder and create it again. Okay, so before we create this folder, I would like to mention one thing, that all the code that I am going to share in this demo are already published in my GitHub repository. So let's go to the GitHub repository. That is my GitHub, and there is an organization called DevOps Learning Circle. Inside this organization, we have a repository called Jenkins as a code repository. This repository contains all the code that we are going to talk about in this video. So if you get stuck yourself or you are not following along with this video, I strongly recommend you can get the code from this repository. I will add the repository URL in the comment. So let's get started. Now in this repository, you can see I also have infrastructure as a code, meaning if someone want to deploy the Jenkins on the AWS, then I use the Terraform to write some script which can allow you to create the instance, and then you maybe use this kind of Jenkins configuration as the code. So in this video, we are not going to talk about infrastructure as code, but we are going to talk about the rest of the details. So let's get started. We have to open the terminal. Let's create a new folder where we are creating all the required file that is required to deploy your Jenkins from the configuration. So mkdir is a command that can help to create a folder in Linux as a code. Okay, then go inside. cd is a change directory command that can allow us to change the directory. Now we are in the demo folder, so let's open the Visual Studio Code, and now we are going to create a file one by one mentioned here on the repository. So we have a folder called init groovy d. This folder we are creating, and we add all the groovy script that we are executing when we are launching the container. So let's see. I have two script. I have two groovy script. One is the basic security, another is LDAP configuration. It's in a template file. If you want to use LDAP configuration, you have to rename this template file to ldap-config.groovy file. And this way you can, also enable the LDAP. But in this video, we are not going to talk about LDAP configuration. But we do talk about the basic security.groovy. What is the basic security.groovy file does? It will help us to create a user that we are going to set when you are access your Jenkins. It will ask a username and password that can. Oh, I create the folder, so I create the file. So let's create the folder init.groovy.d, and now this is saying the file is already exists, so we can delete this file, move to trace, and then we can rename the folder. So make sure that nothing will be disturbing. So here we are creating this file. Enter. Now let's copy the content of this file. We will see all the content in a minute. So we can paste it, save the file. Now let's understand what the code is doing. Now we are importing the few Jenkins libraries and Houston libraries, and then we are creating an instance of our Jenkins using a Jenkins.getInstance method. Now in this instance, we are creating one account, like passing the username and password, and creating a user using a groovy script. This code can help us to create a user with the password, and we are set the security realm by passing this object. So this way we can create a user, and now we have to set the strategy of logging, a strategy of the like what kind of behavior of the user. So we give the full control once logged in authorization strategy, meaning once you logged in you can do anything. That is the setting you can also see when you are first time set up the credential in the Jenkins using the Jenkins manage setting, and then we will save. So this file will help us to create an admin user and also set the authorization strategy. Now let's create the second file that is required, that is our plugins. So we have to create the plugin.txt in the code here on the root. Let's say plugin.exe, not exe, plugin.txt file, and we are copy all the plugins that we are going to install when a Jenkins is building. When we are building a Docker image, we will make sure all the plugin will be installed. Whatever plugin you can, of course you can change the plugin as per your requirement or you can remove some extra, like if you are not using Prometheus you can remove it, or if you want to add some additional functionality, of course you can add the plugin here. These are some basic plugins that we need to require to install, more like a default plugin. I is not 100% default, but we can say that's more like a default. So second step is done. So let's go and copy the CSC file. That means a configuration as code YAML. Don't worry by look, I mean, don't afraid when you see a big YAML file like this. Don't worry, I will give you the idea how you can create this YAML file just by clicking some button. Okay, so do not worry about it. So let's say we can also create this YAML file, and we have to copy the contain. Just copy the contain. Of course you can change the contain as you want, as per your requirement or your configuration, and I will copy the configuration that I set. Let's try to understand this file a bit so you can get an idea that what is this YAML file is all about. So here we are getting one Jenkins object, more like a Jenkins object, and then we are setting the authorization strategy in the YAML. Okay, this is the configuration. So we want to make sure this kind of the configuration should be exist when you are launching a Jenkins. Now these are the global node parameters. We are setting few environment variables that we want to make sure when a Jenkins is launching, these parameters, these environment variable should be exist. And there are few other settings regarding the labels, and these are the default setting. You can also, if you don't want, you can also remove it, but let's keep it. And we are setting the system message here, and also you can see we are setting the slave agent port 50,000, and we this all the information is more like a default information that you can easily get. And if you don't understand this as of now, do not worry. I will show you end of this video how you can generate this YAML file, this configuration as code YAML file by yourself with one click. Okay, but what is the important part I want to show you here is, looks like I did not copy the full content of this file, so we have to copy again a missing part. Okay, so let's put it here, and we are copying. Okay, what is the important part that I want to show you here? As you can see, we are creating a default job, meaning when you first time launching the Jenkins, this default job will also create automatically. So similar way, if you have a requirement that you can create multiple, you can create multiple jobs if you want. Okay, later once when we are launching the Jenkins, we will see whether this job is created or not. So we have done for our Groovy script, we have done configuration as code, and we also done the plugins. And there is one more last step is missing, is build and launch shell script. This is nothing but a script which can help you to build the image. Oh, we I think forget to copy the Docker file. So let's create a Docker file as well. So we have to create a Docker file, putting the Docker file here. Let's copy the content of the files, and then we can go for the shell script. Let's say, so let's understand this Docker file a bit. Now we are passing a parameter. When you are building a Docker image, you may pass this parameter. If you not pass, this is the default value we are going to tag. And whatever value, if you pass the value, we will use the same base image to build a new image. Now setting the root user, we are installing some require tools that may require later, and then we can creating a Jenkins user, setting an environment, and here we are passing the environment variables of our configuration as code.yaml. So you can see we have this path where we storing our YAML file. This file is not exist yet. We will copy this file from the shell script, and we are copy the plugins files, put it here. Similar way, we are also copy the init groovy d in this location. Okay, and then Jenkins plugin CLI, it's an exe that is responsible to install all the plugin which mentioned in the plugin.txt file. Now we are copy the init.groovyd is on this location inside the container. Anything that you specify inside any script, any file or any Groovy script inside this folder will be executed at least one time when we are launching a container. And at last we are exposing the port 8080. This is the port which we can access to our Jenkins. Now let's copy the shell script that we have for building and launching the container. So we have copied the file name. Let's create the file here, enter, and then go here, copy the entire code written in this file, paste it here. Now let's understand a bit. Let's understand these files. We are setting the argument that we mentioned, that we discussed on the Docker file, and it's still a default image, and the latest one is a latest image of the Jenkins, but you can feel free to change any specific version that you want it to be do. Okay, we have an image name, so let's change the image name called demo Jenkins as code, tag of course latest, and this is the container name. Let's say demo Jenkins as a code, should be the small letter. Okay, and few files we are copy from local machine to container, so we have to make sure that we have a read and write permission for these files, because when you move to the container we are going to read these files. And we also create a Jenkins folder on the root directory. This Jenkins folder is nothing but when we are launching a container, we are mounting this location. So the container home directory we are mounting with this location. So we are sending, we are just changing the permission 777. That means full permission we are giving to this folder, and we are copying this configuration as c.yaml file into this mounted location. So once, if anything, if any file is exist, it automatically exists in the contain. If any file exists in the local mount, it will automatically exist in the container. We are building the Docker image, and this will be build the new Jenkins image that we are going to using to launch the container. And this piece of the code is nothing but checking that whether the same container name is exist or not. If it is exist, it will remove it will stop and remove the container and then recreate the container with that name. So I think we have done it pretty much. So let's try to run and see it's everything is working as expected. So we have, let's say, but before we build the image and run the container, I want to make sure that a Jenkins folder on the root should be deleted if exist. Jenkins and permission, no permission, that means great, we do not have a permission to do, but sudo has, so Jenkins folder is deleted. Now let's say sudo sh dot build and launch a script. Now when you hit enter, the script is start building a Docker image. Right now is start building a Docker image, and as you can see we are installing the plugins by running this command Jenkins plugins CLI. It will take a little time to install all the plugins since we have a list of plugins mentioned in the plugin.txt file. So it will be of course taking a little more time that. So let's wait for here. And this is the great way. I mean, this is the great way when you are working as a DevOps. It is a great way to deploying the Jenkins. So our image building is done and we launch a container successfully. So let's verify whether our container is running or not. Docker ps-a will list all the container, whether it's run, stopped, or terminated. So now you can see we have one container that is running, and you can see the image name, container name, port 8080 that we are exposing. So I think pretty much done. So now let's access our newly deployed Jenkins. So let's say localhost 8080, and voila, here is your Jenkins. We have successfully deployed the Jenkins from the code. So let's log in admin, as we have created username admin and the password for this user is admin. Let's sign in, not now, and you can see we have a default jobs that we have created as a configuration. This is the first verification. Second, we can check our environment variable that we have, that we configured in the YAML. You can see all the environment variable listed in the system. You can see the system messages that we set it from the configuration label, and here is the environment variable that we are setting. Three environment variable: email, GitHub server, and the GitHub user. So this is how a Jenkins configuration as a code is working. Now it's time that I promise that I will show you how to creating the configuration as code.yaml file in one click. So for that, you can go to the manage Jenkins, but before you creating the configuration as code YAML file, I suggest you can configure your Jenkins as per your requirement. Once all the configuration is done, you can click on the configuration as code options and download the configuration. this will download the configuration in the YAML format, so later you can use this newly downloaded YAML configuration file into your Jenkins configuration as code. Okay, so that's it for this video. I hope you enjoy this video. If you enjoy, hit the like button, subscribe, comment. If you have any questions, any doubt, feel free to add in the comment, and I will make sure all the relevant resource I will add in the comment section of this video. Once again, thank you for watching this video. I appreciate your time.